Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for all New Jersey students, sponsored by the New Jersey Association for College Admissions Counseling and StriveScan. Thank you for joining us. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your answer to our presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so please be sure to check out the full schedule at NJACAC.org/virtual fair. This presentation is also being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website. I'd now like to turn it over to our presenters.
Hello and welcome. My name is Stephanie Staller from McDaniel College. I'll have the rest of the panelists introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Andrew Grayson. I am the Senior Associate Director of Admission at Kalamazoo College.
And I am Nicole Zervos. I am Associate Director of Admission at Clark University.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening. We hope to be able to give you some great information, not just about our respective institutions, but really the inherent value of the small independent colleges that we each represent and that we collectively have been part of. So the value of a small independent college is, there's many options. Really trying to get it condensed is a remarkable thing, but it's the importance of gaining valuable skills that are going to benefit our students both in the short term and long term when it comes to opportunities and advancement of their career, both post-college and then the long term of a professional life. Employers, graduate schools, professional schools are really seeking certain skills that we at the small independent colleges really covet as part of our academic experience. Having the opportunity for our students to experience internships, gaining job skills, doing in-depth research projects, having the opportunity to study abroad and gain multicultural and cross-cultural competencies, having service learning and other hands-on application to take the theory of class and really put it into practice. Students in all of our institutions learn to collaborate and work independently, to be able to do both of those and to very seamlessly move from one situation to the next to have a successful end product. The #1 sought after skill by U.S. employers continually out of college graduates is communication skills. The development of communication skills is not as thorough as it needs to be at the college level, and it's something that we believe really strongly in and continue to foster year after year at our respective institutions. The #2 skill is learning quickly and adapting. I think the reality of this year has pretty much reinforced the necessity of this, because as we've told and continue to tell our students repeatedly, they will not do just one thing in this world. They will do many things in a professional capacity, and recognizing that professions, what they are when you graduate versus 10 years into the future, could look vastly different. How are you able to adapt the skills learned in college to a future that, you know, people speculate about, but nobody really knows what it's going to look like technologically, globally? It could be really a multitude of things, and we want our students to really envelop these skill sets. The average number of job and career changes facing college graduates in the U.S. is 7. It is, potentially larger number than that, maybe a slightly smaller than that. However, in the end, it's again reinforcing the message that in college, being too technically trained in just one discipline can actually put you at a long-term disadvantage because of the potential for constant change in the job market, as well as our students, they change. The person they are as a 20-year-old is very different than the 30-year-old version of themselves. So wanting to get students being able to think about those things. We're also very adept at making sure students recognize that it's about connecting your strengths with your personal passions and finding majors, finding careers, finding industries that's going to be something you're able to tap into on a repeated basis. having these smaller environments that we all do, we have very small student to faculty ratios, which allows faculty mentorship to be a commonplace occurrence. Having students go to faculty members' houses for dinner, having faculty members, do softball games in the spring as the wrap up to graduation. There is a constant presence of faculty-student collaboration starting right away from that first year, and that kind of individualized mentorship and advising make sure that students have a maximized four-year experience. And also the professional networking that is going to come, because with small schools, while our alumni databases might not be in the millions, we have very dedicated alum who are very excited to do anything they can, whether it's just to have a cup of coffee with a student, whether it's to help get that student a really remarkable internship, maybe an introduction to someone who could be really life-changing for that student. But either way, the networking is, again, a big part of what happens at our respective schools. Also setting up the students for success. Because of our foundation in the liberal arts and sciences, we really address a foundation of skills that pretty much every industry you can imagine is going to ask for and seek actively in an employee. Having those necessary problem solving and reasoning skills, being able to critically think and address the problems and offering up solutions, being able to take vast amounts of information and really putting it to those salient points and being able to put it in context for multiple audiences. And again, addressing the importance of writing and communication skill, that persuasive speech and that ability to write something that is going to talk to both experts in an industry as well as lay people in a field, to really know that you're capturing an entire audience. We are very future-minded at our institutions because we know that the skill sets transcend one major to another. It's really to make sure that you have a bachelor's degree, but beneath that, you have this foundation that is very rock solid in allowing you to just build upon it with each professional opportunity that comes to you. So we are, as a collective, ideal places for giving students, I know it's kind of sometimes an overused term, but a toolkit, the ability to take these skills, continue to accumulate them, and grow them as they progress in their future, because we focus on the education of the students. That's why at our institutions, you're taught by faculty members, and you're given the opportunity to really be taught by people who that is their focus. They do research, they'll write journals, however, they always incorporate students into that experience because we are fostering this lifelong learning philosophy. But that again, there's an adaptability and a competitiveness that our students all will be able to graduate our respective institutions fully capable of whatever the 21st century job market is going to throw their way. They're going to be able to successfully navigate it and also really be able to be strong community members along the way. So that's just to kind of give you a little framework of our respective schools. And now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Nicole, for you to find out a little bit about Clark University. But here, just in case there's any geographic concern over where our respective schools are located, you see New Jersey, and then you see to the northeast is Worcester, Mass. To the southwest is Westminster, Maryland, and directly west is Kalamazoo, Michigan. So that's where all of our respective institutions are located. All right, Nicole, and I'll just flip as you go.
Sure. Well, thank you. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Clark and kind of touch upon some of the points that Stephanie made about small independent colleges and how we do that at Clark. So on the first screen, that was just our motto, Challenge Convention, Change the World. And I think students at Clark really take that to heart. I think we call Clark students Clarkies. So Clarkies are they're very solution oriented. They're not students who see a problem and complain about it. They're students who see a problem and try to come up with solutions and take action to figure out how to change the world. So these are just some fast facts about us. So Clark is located in Worcester, Massachusetts. Worcester is the second largest city in New England, but I think Clark has the advantage of being, while we're in a large city, Worcester is a city that's made up of a lot of very community-oriented neighborhoods. So Clark sits in the neighborhood called the Maine South community, and Clark actually has a nationally recognized partnership with the Maine South community where our students really get engaged and involved in the city. We're about 2,200 undergraduate students, so definitely in that small category. But the unique thing about Clark is that we are actually the smallest research university in the country. So Clark is kind of a hybrid school. We are classified as a research university, but we sort of fall in the small liberal arts category as well and have a liberal arts curriculum. So I like to say that Clark kind of, you get the benefits of both worlds if you would like kind of that big research school feel and the opportunity to do research as an undergrad, but also want to benefit from the small class sizes and personal interactions with your faculty members. Clark is definitely a place for that. You can see some of our stats in terms of, where our students come from: 12.5% international, about 19% first generation students. Our average class size is about 20, and student faculty ratio is 10:1. We have about 33 undergraduate majors and 14 in our accelerated bachelor's and master's program, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And about 85% of our students are receiving some type of financial aid and or scholarship. So to kind of frame I think the benefits of and the value of being a small independent college, Clark kind of uses this approach called the Liberal Education and Effective Practice, or LEAP for short. So when you come to Clark, or if you read our website, you'll see that this acronym is used in a variety of ways, but the idea of it is that we're giving students a liberal arts education, but the effective practice piece is really teaching them how they can take the theory and the knowledge that they're learning in their classes and take it into the outside world. So whether that's doing internships, doing research, being engaged in the community, we're giving them hands-on and practical experience while also getting that strong liberal arts curriculum. So for first-year students, they take part in something called First Year Intensive, or FYI, and that is a small class in your first year where it's discussion-based and your professor serves as your academic advisor. So some students, if they stay in the same major as they choose for their FYI, could potentially have the same advisor for all 4 years that they are at Clark. I've known many students who really have formed a very strong bond with their advisor and really benefit from the opportunity of having their academic advisor be someone who is teaching them in the classroom. The program of liberal studies is a way that our students kind of take classes across the curriculum. So they are really trying to develop all those critical thinking, communication skills like we talked about in the beginning by taking a wide variety of classes, but there's a lot of flexibility in how they do that. So they have a lot of choices. We don't tell them exactly what courses they have to take, so they have the ability to choose ones that might interest them, but it is a way for our students to explore the curriculum. I think employers really value people who can work with others who may think differently than them and be able to solve problems from a different point of view. So I think our students benefit from taking classes kind of outside of their major and really learning to work with others that maybe they wouldn't have if they just took classes in one discipline. Our problems of practice courses are really those hands-on practical courses. So as part of the problems of practice, or POP courses, students are really built into the curriculum some type of hands-on work. So as part of these courses, students have to go out into the community and do some type of hands-on work, whether that's a research internship. For example, some of our management courses will work with local nonprofits to help them solve a problem that they're facing. So it may be that they need to advertise better, or they need help with their social media, or so they take the principles that they learn in their management course and they apply it to that situation. Some of our students in our French translation courses, POP courses, will work with a local nonprofit that works with refugees, and they help them translate their immigration documents, and they serve as an advocate for them. So they're not just translating documents in class, but they're learning how they can do that in a real life situation. And finally, we have a LEAP capstone. So every student at Clark is required to complete a capstone project before they graduate. It may look a little different depending on what students major in. So some students do traditional research projects or honors thesis and then get published in academic journals or present at conferences. Some students come up with a podcast series or write an original sitcom for that they've created. So it can look a lot different, but I really like that it gives students the opportunity to create a body of work, be able to present that to employers or to graduate schools if that's what they're looking to do, and really have that chance to come up with their own original research. And a little bit about life at Clark and some of the campus resources that we offer. I think, the value of being at a small independent college isn't just in academics, it really is in the residential life and the community that's created on campus. So our students really do get involved and engage in the 130 plus clubs and organizations that we offer. We are also a Division III school, participate in the New England Women's and Men's Conference. Students also have the opportunity to study abroad in 50 plus countries, 50 plus study abroad programs in 20 plus countries, kind of building that cross-cultural competency like we were talking about before. And I think the outcomes for Clark students are also really strong. 84% complete at least one internship before their senior year, and 98% are employed in graduate school or engaged in a fellowship or volunteer experience within 6 months. We do also offer a really cool bachelor accelerated master's program. So students have the opportunity to apply to this accelerated program in their junior year, and we offer 14 different master's programs. If they're accepted, they start taking classes in their senior year, graduate level courses, and then continue on and complete their master's in 1 year. And that 5th year at Clark is tuition free, so they don't have to pay for their master's degree, basically, which is really nice. I think in a world where higher education is getting more and more expensive, the ability to do a bachelor's and a master's degree and not have to pay for that degree right at Clark is really a great opportunity. And I think, one that might not happen at a larger institution. And then we offer a number of resources to help support our students. Everything from, the Career Connection Center to the Counseling Center. There's an Office of Academic Support, so students can get help with any type of any type of classes that they need help with, tutoring, papers that they need revised. But I think Clark is definitely a very strong community. That's something that you'll hear over and over again from our students and from our faculty and staff members. And I think you hear that at a lot of small independent colleges, is that they really create this sense of community where students are collaborative, not competitive. They really want to help each other out and help each other with different opportunities that they may get. And I think that really comes from that sense of community that's created on campus.
All right. So I have to say, one of the things that I love about doing these joint panels with schools like my friends at McDaniel and Clark are the striking similarities between so many of our schools. I'm listening to Nicole talk and I'm thinking like, yeah, all that stuff, that's exactly what I say at most of these conversations that I have with students, which is fantastic, because what we're trying to focus on today are some of the things that we all do pretty well, which is, a really focused, experience for undergraduate students. So here's some quick stuff about Kalamazoo. If you've not heard of us before, we are a small independent college, just like McDaniel and Clark. We're about 1,500 students, so we're even on the smaller side. And they come from all over the world and certainly all over the country. Interestingly, actually, 1,500 is big for us. This was a big year. This is the largest that we've ever been. We were about 1,200 students about 10 years ago, and we've been kind of steadily growing. 1,500 is probably about where we will stop that. We're pretty happy with that size, because that size allows us to accomplish a lot of the things that we've all been talking about here as far as the more personalized experience. Our students don't just come from all over the country, but they represent a lot of different cultural backgrounds. They bring a lot of their own personal experiences to campus with them. A lot of schools like ours, you'll hear us talk about the importance of diversity in all of its different forms. And it's not just important to have representation on our campus. Certainly that's a piece of it, but also because of the nature of a small school, the incidental interactions that you have with people that you simply otherwise never would have met, the people who are bringing those perspectives to those, 10, 15, 20 person classrooms, You know, the folks that you're just going to be hanging out with and studying are all going to be bringing unique perspectives, and that's part of the way that we learn. Speaking of the classes, we have a fairly small, you know, class sizes. I think intro classes tend to be the big ones, and you'll hear that from a lot of schools. I think that's similar kind of across the board. But as you get further in, you can have classes at schools like ours that might be as small as 4 or 5 or 6 students. Also importantly is, you know, we're going to talk a lot about small classes, but also who are teaching those classes. At a school like Kalamazoo, all of our classes are taught by a professor. And that's important because it means that you're not necessarily going to be having, you know, a higher level student or a graduate student teaching your class. You have somebody who probably has a terminal degree in their field, who is teaching even your intro level coursework. Now, you know, the other piece that we like to talk a lot about at K is where we are, because Kalamazoo, Michigan, not necessarily is super well known, especially for you all over in New Jersey. And I think it's important to note that it is not a teeny town in the middle of nowhere. There are no cows visible from our campus. There are no cornfields. Kalamazoo, Michigan is actually a decent sized city. It's about 250,000 people in our metro area. We have a lot of community connections that I'll talk about a little bit later. So the fact that we are in a vibrant college town. There is another public university about 6 blocks that direction, and a community college downtown, also a medical school and a law school. So there's more than just our 1,500 students there. There's about 35,000 college students in Kalamazoo. And then also that it's relatively easy to get here. So we're about 2 hours from Chicago, about 2 hours from Detroit, either by train or car. And we do have a commercial airport about 15 minutes from our campus. So if you're thinking about coming out for a visit, it's not that hard to get here. Also, one of the fun things my colleagues and I were talking about when we were putting this together, Kalamazoo is in Eastern time. Technically, we're considered to be part of the Eastern United States, although certainly closer to the middle of the country. We like to think of it more as the Great Lakes region than the Midwest, because I'm not sure what exactly we are west of, other than you all. But yes, Stephanie, if you want to give me the next slide. Thank you. So like I said, lots of the stuff that we do at our schools is very, very similar. Probably the most unique thing about Kalamazoo College, and the easiest way to differentiate it from other small independent liberal arts schools, is this thing called the K plan. So basically, this is the language that we use to talk about our unique curriculum structure and the different opportunities that students have to personalize their time while they're with us in college. There's 4 pieces. Each one maps onto basically one of the years of college, starting with a really open and flexible curriculum. And basically what that means is, instead of having a whole lot of required courses or a core curriculum, the way that we approach things is that you work with an academic advisor one-on-one to build out a curriculum that works best for you. That's not a great fit for every student, but for the ones who are interested in taking that on, I think it provides some really cool opportunities to make it your own. We have a lot of different majors and minors and concentrations, and because of how flexible our curriculum is, it's relatively easy to choose several of those different things as your academic home. Also, it does mean that if you're waking up at 8 o'clock in the morning for a history of Latin America class or a calculus class, you picked it. No one told you you had to be there. And it's not a graduation requirement because we just don't have very many of those. So hopefully you're choosing courses because you're excited about them. You're interested in doing them. And I think that that maps onto a lot of the other pieces of our K plan. So the second piece is the idea of really emphasizing hands-on education. We want students to be able to certainly learn in the classroom, but we also want them to get out of the classroom and be able to apply their learning in the real world in real time. I mentioned those community connections before. The fact that we're a 15-minute walk from downtown and we are a quick drive from a number of Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits, and governmental organizations gives our students a lot of opportunity to dig in, both as part of their coursework and also in the form of professional development. Certainly our students travel all over the country and all over the world for internships, and most of our students will graduate having done one. But there are also opportunities right here in Kalamazoo for them to take advantage of. And about 30% of our classes have a service learning component where students are engaging in some way with our local community. One of the things that Kalamazoo is best known for is our study abroad programs. Again, something that you'll hear a lot of schools talk about, and certainly something that works nicely in that small liberal arts environment, because it tends to be more intentional and more integrated into the work that you're already doing. I think a lot of schools treat study abroad as an opportunity to get away from campus for a while and do something fun. And certainly it is that. But at Kalamazoo, it's also an integral part of your academic experience. You can be away for as long as a full academic year, and you're still taking the same amount of coursework and the same type of coursework that you would have if you were on our campus at any one of the 58 programs that we have across 6 continents. So if you're interested in studying abroad, come talk to me later. And then one more click, Stephanie, I think I've got one more bullet point there. Yes. So then that happens primarily in their junior year. And so then in the senior year, students are going to be really deeply invested in their senior individualized project. A lot of schools have capstones. Kalamazoo's no different in that way. But just like everything else, it can be very flexible. It could be in your major or not. It can be a creative piece of work or a performance, or you could write a long paper like I did. Whatever it is, we hope that it's something that you are invested in and excited about, and potentially something that might take you on to your next step, whatever that might be. All right, we can go to the next one. Very good. So just like a lot of our peers, we have a lot of focused resources for our students. Even though we are small schools, we try to provide all of those important touch points that you would expect at a larger university, except the difference is you're not necessarily going to be in competition with 1,000 other people in order to take advantage of them. For example, in the first year experience program, we really try to help students adjust to college. That can be a really difficult transition for some people. And so we're very intentional about the way that we design those kinds of programs. We also have a lot of different academic support and just generally very accessible advising across campus. One kind of unique thing about Kalamazoo is that we have a $35 million endowment set aside specifically for social justice leadership and research. This means that we can fund students going for internships or doing their own research, bringing people to campus, sending students to conferences, in anything that sort of impacts that question of how do we use this privilege of acquiring an education to make the world a better and more just place. It's one of my favorite parts about Kalamazoo is that, and I think a lot of schools like us, my colleagues I'm sure have the same experience, we tend to attract a lot of students who are really deeply engaged in the world and interested in making an impact. I always think it's cool to see what it is that they end up doing. Now, we are also a residential campus, and we think that that's important because that is where a lot of those interactions happen. It's where a lot of those connections are built. We know that students who attend small colleges, even though there's fewer people there, fewer faculty members, smaller alumni networks, like Stephanie said, that they graduate with a actually larger social network and a larger professional network. And in part, that tends to be because we're working and we're living and we're playing and we're studying in close quarters with all of these other people that we may not have necessarily met otherwise. Similarly, lots of student organizations and clubs that you can take advantage of and participate in. And if any of you might be student athletes, 18 Division III NCAA sports teams. I'm gonna let Stephanie go, and then hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really funny, especially being the third one here, is they're even repeating like jargon. It's just, I mean, we are not the same schools, but we are of the same philosophy. And so our faculty, our academic departments have never collaborated, and yet so many themes are very much shared institutionally. Well, welcome to the Hill. We are a hill because we are literally on a hill. If we ever get snow again, it'll be fantastic sleigh riding. But here's some quick facts about McDaniel College. We are in Westminster, Maryland, which is a small college town of, I think it's about 40,000 or so people that live in Westminster. We are a county seat. We're in central Maryland, where it would take you, depending, we're about 30 miles northwest of Baltimore, Maryland, an hour directly north of Washington, D.C., and immediately south of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. So we're very close to the Pennsylvania border. We're at about 1,800 students who are 85% residential and coming from about 32 different states. We are, again, small class sizes, not to diminish the importance of that, but that is obviously something we do all share. The opportunity for students to have those immediate classroom experiences where they raise the hand, they're known, they can go to see the teacher, the professor after class. They don't need their student ID number. They just need to say, hey, I just have a question for you, and be able to, have that kind of engagement. We're really proud of actually, the diversity of our students, as Andrew was speaking about, is, it means a lot of things, diversity. And for us, it's really important that we are able to, we actually have a significant first generation population, as well as a large multicultural student population as well. And those are things we're very proud of. We additionally have like 35% of our students are on Pell Grant. So socioeconomically, to have that level of diversity is really important, because as Nicole said, as higher education becomes a more and more expensive sticker price, it can be daunting to think, oh, everyone is a very homogeneous population, when in fact smaller schools like ours work really diligently to actually prevent that, and to make sure that our student representation is a bit of the world. It's just a smaller version of the world, but it is right there. Some unique McDaniel characteristics. McDaniel commitment is, it's again, thematically similar to what my colleagues were talking about at their own institutions. Basically, it's our promise to our students that over the course of their 4 years at McDaniel, it will be very intentional decision-making alongside of ongoing mentorship and advisement. So with the McDaniel commitment, it has basically every year there's some component of it that is happening. In your first year, 2 pieces of it that are occurring are the My Local experience, which is a summer pre-orientation, a 2-day, 1-night opportunity for about 60 or so of our first year students to come together on campus to start getting connected to Westminster. They do usually a town beautification project. They go out to our environmental science farm and do some, they're usually planting trees or helping with the habitat there. But again, just to get students starting to become more and more comfortable with this new community that they're finding themselves in. And then in between the fall and the spring semester of their first year, all of our students take part in a 3-week class called My Design. And this is done by our academic life department, specifically for freshmen, to help them really answer the question of why and what. Why do you want to major in that? Why do you want to investigate that career? And what do you want to do during your 3.5 years to go of college? And really spending time doing a lot of fun ways of kind of getting at the answers to those questions, but making sure that students recognize that it's not just having a bachelor's degree that will just open every door you ever come in front of. That it's in fact about making sure that you look at college as not just a get me to a degree and let me graduate, but actually an experience that will continue to grow and evolve with you. As you change as a human being, you're going to continue to see, different opportunities present themselves as those changes happen. And we want students to, right away in that first year, be focused in on what do I need to do in these next 3.5 years of college to make myself a strong candidate for whatever that next chapter will be after college. And then next comes the My Experience. My Experience happens in the sophomore and junior years. We actually require all of our students to do 2 experiential learning opportunities at their time at McDaniel. We have an office on campus, the CEO, Center for Experience and Opportunity. They actually coordinate all of this with the students. They have an ongoing and growing database of opportunities for internships, scientific research, study abroad, service learning projects. However those experiences are going to take shape for each individual student, the CEO office will help coordinate that during this My Experience period at McDaniel. Because again, we want to make sure that you're getting that return on investment, that you are getting experiences of a professional scope that will be growing your resume and getting you to that better position when the time comes to applying to graduate professional schools or going into the workforce after graduation. And then My Career happens just at the beginning of your senior year at McDaniel. You actually will sit down once again with the CEO office and actually start to plot out, have you or are you working towards solidifying your post-college plans? If you're planning to go to graduate or professional school, have you taken entrance exams? Have you gotten letters of recommendation requests into your professors? What programs are you investigating? If you're going to the job market, have you added the most recent experience to your resume? Would you like to come to our interview workshop to polish up those interview skills. We have some networking nights that we want to, we're going to have different employers on campus. We want you to, take part in those so you can start getting yourself out there, getting your resume out there, but really making it so that by the time we reach May of your senior year, you are not worried and anxious because you're just now starting the process of what am I going to do after I graduate college. That every step of the way you've kind of been working towards this, and at the beginning of your senior year, one more step has been taken to make sure that your plans are fully ready to be realized when you get ready to graduate. The McDaniel Plan is our core curriculum, which is, again, very eerily reminiscent of my colleagues at Clark and Kalamazoo. But what it is there are graduation requirements. However, they are highly flexible. So there are various categories of areas like quantitative reasoning, scientific inquiry, creative expression, textual analysis, things that actually was talked about at the beginning of the slides of, how important it is to gain this skill set. Each of those categories of the McDaniel Plan, there could be 30 to 50 courses that could fulfill that requirement, and they are an all academic discipline offering. So you are not, again, being a one-size-fits-all type of model that you're working with. You right away will determine, I have this requirement, however, I want to take this specific class to fulfill that, because this is how we know that you're establishing that foundation of skills that we know is so important. I mentioned the CEO office, and we also, in terms of internships and job placement and just overall preparation for life, both while at McDaniel and after McDaniel. We also have study abroad. About 35 to 40% of our students study overseas. One of the unique aspects is we actually have a sister campus in Budapest, Hungary. We started McDaniel Europe about 25 years ago, and students predominantly from Europe, Asia, and Africa will tend to go to that campus because it is a 4-year degree granting institution. It's just in Budapest. And what it affords our current students is the opportunity to actually go study abroad there for a semester, and a faculty member actually will go and teach abroad for that semester that they're over there. And it's usually about 20 current McDaniel students will go together, and it's all McDaniel College. So from a financial standpoint, this also assisted our students with being able to take finances off the reason why they might not be able to study abroad, because any financial assistance you get at McDaniel in Westminster applies to you going to the Budapest campus. And then these are our different opportunities just to, again, to support. We have a first-year dean who monitors both academically and socially if there's any causes for concern. The same with our student outreach network. That's any student that might be in crisis, having that there. We have support services. We're Division III with 24 varsity sports. We have theater, music, clubs, and traditions aplenty. All right, so that is us. And hold on, let me do a time check. Okay, so hold on one second. I want, if now you have any questions, please do put those in the Q&A. This is obviously all of our respective contact information, but I sped it up a little at the end just because I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to answer any questions that folks might have. So let me, all right, so, okay, I have question here. I'll let one or both of my colleagues, if you want to answer this. Hold on. Let's see. For a student who's undecided, how helpful is it in finding a major at your schools?
That's a great question. I will touch on it briefly, and then I'll let Nicole answer the sort of the meat of it. I think that in many ways, it's great to be undecided as long as you also have some thoughts about what things you might be interested in. When I'm counseling students, I often ask them, like, what was your favorite class last year? What are you most excited to show up to school for? That's a good guiding principle for starting to take some classes. Most of our schools, you're going to be able to come in undecided and take some time to explore the curriculum, work with an academic advisor, get to know some faculty before you actually have to make a decision about what it is that you're going to major in. And the reality is, most people who think they know what they're going to come in and do change their minds along the way because they learn things in college that they could not have learned in high school. So don't worry about it. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, I would say I think the value in going to small schools like ours is that we all talked about our curriculum and how We have students kind of take classes across the curriculum and you really get to explore. And that's really built into your experience at a small school like one of ours. So I think that just the opportunity to do that is really great. Thinking back to my own experience as a college student, I actually went to a very large university my freshman and first half of my sophomore year, and then transferred to a small school like the one that I work at now, although I didn't go to Clark. But I remember being a freshman and I was undecided, and I wanted to think about taking some classes in communications, but the communications major was actually in a different college than I was technically in. So I remember emailing my advisor and he basically was like, nope, can't do that. You're not in that college. So I think that the value in being in a small school like ours is that you do really get that opportunity to take those classes. You're not restricted, and you can have advisors who will sit down with you and really talk with you about what you want to do. So at Clark, your academic advisor is in your FYI class is one of your professors. So even if you decide you don't want to, do their major, they're going to have that conversation with you about, okay, well, I've gotten to know you in this class. Like, it seems like you're really interested in this area. Maybe you should talk to one of my colleagues in this department, or maybe you should take a course in this department. And then layered on top of that, we also have an academic advising office where any student can go and just get general advice on what to do. So I really think the value in going to a school like ours is that we kind of want you to be undecided a little bit, and be open to changing your minds or open to taking new courses that maybe you hadn't thought of, but you'll have lots of faculties and staff support along the way.
Okay, got another one. How can a small school give me the same social offerings and professional opportunities like a big school could?
So I sort of touched on that a little bit in my presentation, but I think it's going to be different, of course, being at a small school, but that doesn't necessarily mean better or worse. In many ways, it's a very personal question. But at small schools, it really is easier to meet people that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise chosen to meet, and to get involved in things like, if you want to play a sport in college, it's much easier to do it at a small school. Or maybe if you want to engage in music or theater or the arts, you don't have to be a major usually. You don't necessarily have to compete with all these other people who want to take up space in those, practice rooms or, theaters or whatever. So in a lot of ways, small schools provide opportunities that large schools can't. One of the things that I was always struck by at Kalamazoo was how many of the students got to know folks in classes other than their own as well. So part of being in a small school environment is that you're generally going to be able to meet and connect with folks who might be seniors when you're a first year, and seeing people go through the process ahead of you. And then also being connected with those people. In many ways, when you're choosing a college, you're also choosing who are the people you're going to be friends with for the rest of your life. And I think that that's very, very true, especially at small schools. I went to Kalamazoo, I graduated in 2010. I cannot tell you how many weddings I've gone to in the last 5 years. It's a lot. And I actually performed 4 of those. And those are all people that I met and became very close with in college. So if you're concerned about the size of the school, meaning that you're not going to have friends or you're not going to have social opportunities, you're never going to go to a big football game, none of that's necessarily true. That was actually all part of my experience going to college. The football game wasn't that big, but I went because my roommate was on the team. So it's just a slightly different context.
And since I see that we're getting near the end, how about for the sake, we're done with questions, but how about for the sake of the college search process, is there any advice you would offer to someone to keep their sanity in this process, and or things you wish you had looked for or known about? Nicole, you want to, or Andrew? Yeah, Nicole, you want to go first?
Sure, I can say, I know I previously mentioned that I was a transfer student, so there's a lot of things I wish I had thought about when I was going through the college search process. I went through it 3 times. Once as a high school senior, I applied as a transfer during my freshman year, decided to go back to the school I was at, and then did half of my sophomore year and then really decided it wasn't the place for me. So my advice is always, I'm always about finding what is the best fit, what fits your personality. I was a very shy, kind of quiet kid in high school, and I was looking at all really big, large schools because I thought I wanted to go to a big city and be at a large school. And then I got there and realized that is not my personality at all. And I really would have thrived better in a small school setting. So I think taking like a good sort of like self-reflection and just looking at like who you are as a person, how do you learn, like how do you make friends, kind of social environments do you thrive in. So that's something I wish I had taken more advantage of, was just kind of really thinking about like what was going to be the best environment for me.
Go for it, Andrew.
I would just add that a lot of students, I think, make a decision about college based on a gut feeling. And I think as you're looking at schools, pay attention to those feelings and pay attention to the things that you notice. You're going to only remember maybe 10% of what it is that we said today. That 10% is the important part for you. And so as you're making decisions about college, it's not about, whether your friend is going here or so-and-so said that this one was better. It really does need to be about which is the best fit for your style of learning, your needs, and what's going to give you the best outcome. So as long as you're focused on that, you really can't go wrong.
Good advice. I think we're out of time, right?
Yes.
Okay. There.
Thank you guys all for joining us today. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey, and we'd appreciate any feedback you can give. Also, just a reminder that this is one of many sessions being hosted, so please be sure to sign up for additional sessions at njacac.org/virtual fair. And in about a week or so, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings on the same website. Thank you all.